I really, truly wanted to be in your life. It didn't matter how it looked to me. Sometimes it looked like we were best friends. Sometimes it looked like we worked together. So it just looks like we were coworkers. And sometimes it means that we were passionately in love. That's, I think it just keeps like going back to that initial point in my life where I had that certainty inside of me that said, look, I want to be a part of your life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Flow Over Fear, and check out our new studio. Well, it's not really a new studio. I only really just moved back about 4 feet from the desk. And if you're not watching YouTube, which if you're not, go to YouTube and subscribe to Flow Over Fear. What are you doing? But anyway, I moved back about 4 feet and I'm setting up something of a studio where we can do in-person interviews. So pretty cool, huh? Right now it's a bit makeshift. I brought these chairs up from our dining room table and just brought a couple of like end tables to help put microphones up. So we're getting into the swing of things, but I wanted to start this one-on-one interview thing by interviewing my lovely wife, Marie, and just having a chat here because we are about to celebrate our 19th anniversary. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
You did.
Oh my gosh. That's been weighing on me. Yikes. If I stepped wrong into that one, that would have been terrible. But no, 19 years with this lovely woman, and there's a lot of lessons we've learned, a lot of things we've been through together, good and bad, and challenging. But through it all, there's been a lot of lessons that we've learned, and kind of wanted to bring her on, talk about some of those experiences, what we've learned, and just kind of get the perspective from my lovely wife, what it's like to live in this crazy, world of fear, anxiety, and all of this kind of stuff that the whole family is really going through and navigating it, and making sure we can find flow over it. Because our relationships a lot of times are, in our relationships, whether it be with our spouses, our loved ones, anything like that, we still have to deal with fear. And we have to deal with that fear or deal with that flow in the midst of working through relationships and different, how people interact with one another. So welcome, Marie. Thank you for being here today.
Wow. Thank you very much for introducing me that way.
Yeah. Well, I of course I would. And I mean, I don't know, like, is there any other way that I would introduce you that would be like anything I missed?
Superwoman.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Those laser beam eyes are pretty
Mother
crazy.
of dragons.
Mother of dragons. Well, let's talk about that for a second. All right, because we've been through some stuff, and kids are challenging. Having the kids are challenging. So our kids right now, 15 years old, 12 years old, 15-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son, and certainly raising any kids is going to be a big challenge. For me, I have a lot of feelings of I always care what people think, and I'm always like trying to make sure everybody's okay. That's just my default fear and anxiety kind of mode. So going around the house and just trying to do that and make sure we have harmony, that's been a big kind of learning lesson for me. What have been some of those lessons for you? Where's your brain at now as we have these teenagers?
I think the lesson that I've learned the most is letting go.
Yeah.
Letting go of being in control of their lives and their wants, their needs, the way that they want to dress for school or that sort of stuff. It's letting go. Being a good listener is one of the challenges because most of the time they do get a lecture from me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the job of a mom, right? To be the teacher, and sometimes that can come off as there's I guess that balance you have to strike, right? Like not just being a teacher, but avoiding like going overboard, like on that. I guess that if there's a metric, there's like, oh yeah, here I'm a teacher, but now I'm getting into that nagging zone. Do you find that balance kind of hard to strike, or what do you think?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very difficult. I really want the best for our kids.
Our kids.
Because,
I mean, skipping a beat there for a minute.
I really want the best for our kids.
Yeah.
And I really strive.
By the way, my next guest is going to be Mari Povich. So
no. But you always throw me off track.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Really? No.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like that's kind of the way I'm supposed. First of all, I'm a dad. I've developed that dad sensibility of I have to throw you off track. I have to make everything lighthearted. So yeah, I throw you off track. But interestingly, in 19 years, I mean, there's a lot of maturity that goes on, maturing that goes on, right? I mean, so one of my guests, Barb Betts, who I had on recently, I was having dinner with her in a group of friends and everything like that when we were speaking, and she'd mentioned something that resonated with me is that a lot of people who stay together, especially when they've been married at a young age or when they've been together since a young age, like we were, a lot of times they either grow together or they grow apart. And I feel that, through everything that we've been through, that we've grown together in that sense. And is that how you feel, or should I just leave?
In a sense, I think we grew up together. Yeah. I think there was a lot of stumbling, a lot of it since the beginning. I know I remember Barb talking about that and just thinking of where's the glue that has been keeping us together through the whole entire time that we've been together. It's like is not like one thing I can pinpoint.
Right.
That okay, so we were young and we were really close. And I remember telling you when we first met and I truly meant this. I meant this, was that I don't care if we stay together. I don't care if we are girlfriend and boyfriend. All I wanted to be was in your life. Mm-hmm. And I meant that wholeheartedly. I was like, second day I met you, put all on the line. I said, I just want to be in your life. And at that moment, I had that certainty. And I was just like, this is important to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really remember saying that to you.
Yeah. And I remember that too. And then I remember a week later, you called me and said, hey, let's go for a walk. And and back in the days before cell phones and things like that and texting, we went for walks when we wanted to break up, right? So that was I
don't remember that.
Yeah.
Like, what did we talk about? I
don't remember because I was waiting for the dreaded, like, hey, this just isn't working out. This isn't going to happen. And like, so basically the whole walk, like we finally get back home and I'm like, oh, she just wanted to go on a walk. Okay, great. So this was in college, folks, where at that time too, weren't really engaging in very healthy behaviors at the time anyway. At least I wasn't. That's where I was kind of developing into, alcoholism. And I know that's obviously been a subject that we've both worked through in therapy was, my dependence on alcohol and the challenges that caused. So I guess the question is, why are you still with me?
Because I love you with all my heart and soul.
Okay.
When I met you, you were 19 and
she was 21, by the way.
Yeah,
so
I was 21.
Yeah. You can do the math on yeah.
But there was something about you. I didn't know you completely, like we do now. There was something about you that made me feel like it was my first ever love. Like I was 14 again. I was giddy about everything. And there was just something that was this attraction that just didn't go away.
Right.
People warned me even like, oh, don't get too attached.
Really? Yeah. Who's saying that? Was it like, was I some kind of like, I don't know, dangerous guy?
I don't know.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, but I'm curious as to, I mean, I know that during those times there's, you know, there are codependencies and things like that exist in those times. And I guess for anybody that's listening to this, for you know, I know that there's this element of, if you're in the midst of some kind of toxic relationship, and I'm sure that there were times because of my behaviors, the relationship was toxic, right? You know, and it's like, you know, there's a bit of a double-edged sword there, because you want to tell people in those situations, you take care of yourself. Don't stay in it thinking you could fix people. But, you know, also it worked out for us because we grew closer from the experience. So I'm just curious to know your thoughts around a lot of that.
I think when we were younger, we did everything wrong.
Sure.
We did. I feel like I wanted to change you. Especially, I'm like, if I can fix him, this is what I went to school for. I went for a psychology degree. And if I could fix him, then everything would be great. You know, everything would be wonderful. I think we just did everything completely wrong. But fortunately, we both went into therapy. Mm-hmm. And I think the most important part that worked for us, I don't know if that works for everybody, is that we went to separate therapy.
Yeah.
Throughout the years.
That's a good point. I mean, a lot of couples go to couples therapy, and I don't want to dismiss the importance of that. I mean, I know that in our time together, we've thought about, is that the right thing for us? Mm-hmm. But you know, I agree that there's this great element of one-on-one therapy that's been really helpful. I mean, you know, I've been with my therapist for like 12 years, and you know, I know you've been doing therapy for, you know, since your teenage years. So and so, I agree. I mean, normalizing therapy in this family has been very important. All of our kids go to therapy now too. So I say the two kids we have.
Maybe the pets too.
Yeah, maybe the pets. The pets might need to.
The pets.
Those pets are anxious.
The dogs.
There's a lot of anxiety in this household. That's for sure.
Where are we with that?
Well, no, I was just curious to know your thoughts on because you mentioned the therapy, but you know, we spent a lot of time in that toxic area where I was drinking. I was not healthy, and you know, I wasn't. You know, it was a toxic environment. I wasn't abusive, but it was certainly not a place that I would wish anyone to stay, who's a spouse. And so I guess I'm asking, like, you know, what your thoughts are on that as far as kind of sticking that through. What advice would you have for somebody that's maybe going through some of that?
In the beginning, we didn't know better.
Yeah.
You just stayed in it. Deep down inside, I knew in your soul that you were this great, amazing person.
Right.
That I looked up to and inspired me in a lot of different ways. And I think it still goes back to what I said to you the second day, is I really, truly wanted to be in your life. It didn't matter how it looked to me. Sometimes it looked like we were best friends. Sometimes it looked like we worked together. So just looks like we were coworkers. And sometimes it means that we were passionately in love. Mm-hmm. That's, I think it just keeps like going back to that initial point in my life where I had that certainty inside of me that said, look, I want to be a part of your life.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've never heard you put it like that. And I really appreciate the way you're framing that, because I think it demonstrates an important part of relationships that they do evolve in certain ways. And maybe they're cyclical. Maybe there's just certain ways that they evolve. But your perspective on that is so important that it's just like, hey, I just want to be in your life. And that simple idea keeps it so that, like, even if we're struggling, even if we're having challenges or issues, and we have had our fair share of challenges. I mean, with not just with my addictions, not just with, our own mental health, but, now with our kids, they challenges kind of keep coming. But that perspective of saying, well, no, it doesn't always have to be absolutely perfect. And as long as we establish this like baseline constant of, we just want to be in each other's lives. Well, that's powerful. That gives us a framework for where to work and where we want to end up at the very least. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I mean, I really appreciate the way you framed that. So I don't think I remember hearing you say that, to be honest, when back in the day. I mean, that was a long time ago, but I mean, it was 19 years, but yeah, but yeah, I think it's a really, really wise perspective. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So so within these last 19 years, what do you think has worked? I mean, because I know we talked about how you said nothing worked, right? Like, I have my ideas of what's kind of worked, but I'm curious to know what you feel has worked well.
Sometimes it's been your true and brutal honesty.
Yeah.
And I say brutal because I'm a very sensitive soul. So it could, I mean, him brutal would be like, hi, honey, maybe you should get some help. And now I say that lightly, and we laugh and we joke about it. But I also was struggling with anxiety as well as depression too. So having my own struggles in a way, I think that almost balanced your alcoholism, that made me go, wow, he's getting better. It inspired me to get better too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of a lot of it too. It's just, we're creating these traumatic experiences probably for ourselves in those scenarios, but we are, there is also that element of, there's a constant there, and that helps us to get back to it. I mean, for as much as I was really struggling with alcohol over the course of a decade, I know when we think about that in a big picture thing, it's like, oh wow, how could you stay with that? How could you continue to live trapped or in that? And the reality was, I mean, I was still working at being a human being even during that time. I was still working at trying to live a life of that mattered, and a lot of my resentment came from the fact that I just wasn't aligned with what I felt mattered at that time. That I was just kind of going through the motions of this, and alcohol was a way to kind of break that anxiety piece. But I think when we, and I know that's true of, like, when you're saying that you from the depression standpoint, all that kind of stuff, it's like, well, that wasn't a constant that was in our life. The constant that was in our life was that there was this love and evolution that was happening in our lives. And what I've seen is that we have grown through it. We've grown together over that time, to the point where once we did have kids, and I was finally getting sober, and we were all getting help, when our kids started to struggle. Even though we didn't know exactly what to do, we at least knew how to start and what we were dealing with, to an extent that we knew we can rise above the challenge. And I think that if we hadn't been through what we went through, I don't know if we would have been able to survive what we've gone through recently. I don't know about if you think that's true, but that's, yeah.
In a way, that's a good question. I don't think I would have an answer to that, but it just showed me throughout our lives. I mean, even like, I graduated from high school and we went through a lot of trauma, and you were always by my side, even when I was struggling. And I think it goes back to that point where it's like one of us picked up the load if the other one was suffering.
Yeah.
So, Brene Brown says, I've got 20%. So the other person can say, yeah, I got 80%. I think we just did that automatically.
Yeah.
I think we just like, okay, I've gotten enough here. Let's go.
Right.
I've dealt with trauma early on in my life, even before you. And so I could deal with it. I felt like maybe that's because my mom was a nurse. I don't know if I'm like wired that way or it's just, okay. I always knew in the face of trauma or in something escalating to a point, rock bottom, I knew there was another side.
Yeah.
And that, and almost made me like, oh yes, it's here. Like, like your DUI. I'm like, yes, it's here.
Right.
And this is going to go in a way in the other direction because we're at the bottom.
Yeah.
And there's only up that we can go.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that's an important point because if you're at that bottom point, there's this idea, and this is even outside of relationships, inside of relationships, but more so just in our lives. When we hit that bottom point, we feel absolutely hopeless. But we have to recognize that there is hope beyond that hopelessness. And, just the fact that you saw that on that day, I saw something while I was in a huge heap of shame and everything that day. And, in the days that followed, it was the starting line for me to grow back better, to become a better person. And I think that's another thing that's existed in our lives for ever since we really known each other, even when we were in college, is the seed planted of personal development. There's been this seed planted, with and in the beginning, I think for the first decade or so, I always felt a shame around leaning into stuff like that, like leaning into things like Tony Robbins. It's like, oh, I'm kind of embarrassed to be reading the Awaken the Giant Within, just because of how what I was conditioned to believe. It was like, that it was cuckoo and that it was just like, it was rah kind of stuff. And same with same with how we can, rise out of, financial challenges. But here I was trying to do the status quo, miserable in my life. And using alcohol to try to suppress a lot of that. But, finally when it clicked, finally within sobriety, it was like that personal development feed started that you had introduced me to, that we had been working on, had started to grow. And I was like, oh my God, it works if you actually work with it. And to the point where, today it's like, hey, success. I'm doing a successful podcast and helping other people through these kind of things. So we can grow through those traumas. We can evolve through them. And a lot of times it just takes all of those seeds that are planted in us that we've been afraid to take hold of. We just have to let go, like you said, that beautiful part right at the beginning of this episode where you said, just let go. We have to let go. And when we do, we give that wonderful, beautiful flower of development the chance to grow and sprout from the seed that exists within us.
Oh, that just touched my heart.
Oh, really?
I'm like, yes. I'm like,
good.
I know. Like, I think we pushed each other.
Yeah.
Especially with the personal development sort of piece. There was one point. It wasn't too long ago, right before the pandemic, and I was just in a rut. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I, was just kind of just sitting there doing nothing, and we were arguing all the time, and we weren't in a place, like we weren't connected.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And then you went to Tony Robbins, and then you're like, you should go. And I'm like, oh, I don't deserve it. I don't need it. I had a lot of excuses, but you are always there, like pushing me, and you know how to push me, like to the point where, it's really, it's almost like at times we are, almost like siblings in an aspect, like, or not even like you're my coach or I'm your coach or something like that, where we will, hey, get like teammates, maybe.
Teammates is better.
That's the good one.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's it. We are teammates, and you're like, look, you need to get up and pull your, that sort of way. And I'm like that too.
Yeah.
So you told me to go to Tony Robbins, and the best advice I got was act like it's the beginning and it will never be the end.
Yeah.
I think that was the turning point of stop listening.
Mm-hmm.
And stop listening to other people say he should do this and he should do that. And those shoulds really cloud your judgment and your love for another person.
Yeah.
Oh, how could he do that? And could do this and it doesn't make sense at all. We do enough. I know you're doing 100. You're doing as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means I pick up the pace.
Sure.
And I pick up the load. And sometimes you have to pick up the load because I'm falling behind too.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we give each other a lot of grace in our relationship.
Yeah.
So I think that has been this whole new, I love you so much and only sing praises about you too.
Well, thank you. I love you too. Yeah.
This is it's almost like a honeymoon phase again for me because I listened to that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely true. I mean, I feel like, certainly from all of the anxiety and fear and trauma and that's trauma has been self-inflicted. It's not like we've been inflicting on each other, but all of that trauma that we felt, we've risen above that. We're feeling good. And this does feel like this is like the new start for us, just the new, everything feels very new and we're always reinventing, which is great. It's that constant evolution. And I love that, embracing that idea of okay, we're in that baseline of we're always going to be in each other's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And what's next, and being open-minded to whatever's next. Are we going to live somewhere new? Are we going to start a new business? Are we going to do something, contribute in some new way, or find some kind of next level to our relationship? And I think that's been powerful. The new thing that we've been doing is going to games and stuff, which is pretty cool. Oh, yeah. So that's been fun. That's a new part. I didn't know that about you, to be honest. I've been she wouldn't be interested in going to a baseball or football game or something like that. And it's we went and she's so
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's that piece, and that's part of your value is adventure.
Yeah.
I do enjoy adventures.
Right.
I didn't do that as much as a kid. I was so scared, and I had so much anxiety as a kid too. So being able to do, push each other in self-development. Hey, I'm doing this meditation, so it's almost like a competition, I think. So me is okay, well, if he's meditating, then I have to meditate. So that in itself has I don't even know where I was going with that one, but
no, it's true. I mean, I've always felt that bit of competitive spirit in you for sure. I mean, and it's been good because even with all of these things, it's we've helped each other kind of get better. You introduced me to kind of the personal development side of things. And then I introduced you to the Ironman side of it. And we kind of feed off of that. It's showing each other what's possible for ourselves. And yeah, it's interesting. So I'm curious to know, where's your head now? How are you feeling now with 19 years? And what is how are you feeling about the future? What's next?
What's next for us?
Yeah, anything. Yeah, when I say that, kind of what triggers in your mind?
Almost. Well, it still goes back to that thought process of, oh, whoa, wait, what? That. I don't know.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do next?
Right.
All I know is that it's I love spending time with you, and I always tell you that.
Yeah.
I come into your office, when you're all serious, and I know that you need a poke.
I'm a very serious person.
No, he does. it's fun because you joke around when I need it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we complement each other that way.
Well, we're not joking here. This is very serious. Very serious.
It's a different side of you that they haven't seen, is it?
What? This?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So what, you haven't been watching my podcast?
No, I have been watching your podcast.
All right. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you're not this flirty with other podcast guests.
Well, you've seen it. I mean... I just have to make everyone feel welcome. That's the whole...
That's really nice.
That's the importance. Yeah. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, what do you feel like in your heart? So continue. What's next? What do you feel like?
Adventure.
Yeah. What adventures do you want to go on? What adventure are you thinking?
Well, definitely travel, because we haven't been able to go out, at least outside of the United States. Yeah. Maybe off of this out of North America.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe do something like that.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, we can finally go to Canada. Yeah, apparently.
I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I didn't realize this, and anybody listening, apparently Canada, the land of Molson and lots of beer, they take the land that takes their drinking very seriously. If you have a DUI in the United States, which of course is a very bad thing, I don't want to discount that. But you are not allowed into Canada for 10 years if you're an American citizen and you have had a DUI.
Maybe they just don't want you in there.
That is probably true. But yeah, maybe that was just an excuse.
Because your ancestors used it.
Yeah, that's true.
To flee.
Yeah.
I'm from, I have a lot of family there, so I'm excited to go back.
I'm kind of from there. I mean, yeah.
Technically.
4th generation. Yeah. We came by way of Tilsonburg, so yeehaw. Or do they say yeehaw up there? Or is it yea? Yea. Right. I am. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a good time to call it then, if I'm embarrassing myself, which I tend to do here. Yeah. But before I do, just wanted to give you a chance to, is there anything else you wanted to touch on today, or as far as, within 19 years of marriage, what works? What advice can you give to couples out there, people who are trying to make things work and trying to evaluate if it's the right fit? And that might really be it, is if it's not the right fit, if it's not working out, that could be okay too. But, clearly we worked out, we're a good fit. Mm-hmm. And, but for those that are kind of evaluating that process, what advice do you have, or what thoughts do you have?
Not to listen to other people.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the when your baby is first born and people are going to tell you everything under the sun.
Like how cute it is. And it's so ugly. And it's so ugly, guys.
They don't work on other people's timetables. Yeah. Like, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids?
Yeah.
What's after kids? When do they stop pressuring you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think after kids, it's like, who's so-and-so going to, what college are they going to? It's like everybody has this expectation for you and the other person. And I don't think that you can focus on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think communication is I think our weekly meetings have.
That's a good one. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Our weekly meetings have just infused our communication and how we communicate with each other, and having something structured like that every single week. We know kind of, because I have to look at your schedule all the time to see where you are.
I know you're always keeping up with me. Yeah. I get it.
Well, no, I get it, because like, okay, well, I need to do this, and you need, I need some just in general, and to see where we're at. But having that communication every week is really, I think it's been a real game changer.
Yeah.
For us, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that weekly meeting, I think, has been great. I'm glad you brought that up because, EOS in and of itself, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which if you haven't read Traction yet by Gino Wickman, give that a read. That's what we implement in the company that I run. It's what we implement in our household because it's so effective. And that weekly meeting is really important because it does keep us aligned on a lot of those things. We actually make to-dos for ourselves. It holds us accountable because yes, just like in a business, I think that, couples have to be accountable. Partners have to work together in the right way to, and know what they're working on. So if it's like, as cold as it sounds, even in today's meeting, I reminded myself, okay, Marie, our anniversary is coming up. By the time this airs, it will have been our anniversary. So we will have already had a lovely time going to Meow Wolf and enjoying some dinner afterwards. But that's what we decided during that level 10 meeting. It's like, all right, well, what are we going to want to do during that time? What's going to serve both of us? And same with like the birthday. It's like Marie's birthday is coming up. What do you want to do? And we want to make sure we're giving the freedom to allow that person to the person who gets that chance to shine on their birthday or on their day to tell what they want to do, so that they're not setting themselves up to be disappointed, right? Because I know it sounds cold to say in a meeting, all right, what are we going to do for your birthday? But it's like, that element of it it keeps it so that we can make sure that we're honoring one another, I think.
Well, yeah, an organization and also feeling heard. You set this time.
Yeah.
You set it up for both of you. You honor that. It's honoring that time. You feel heard. You get to speak. Another person gets to speak. Yeah. And you work through things.
Yeah.
And it's every week, and it's kind of like, well, we know what we leave that meeting knowing, okay, he's got to do this, I've got to do this, we're good,
Right.
And just having that communication, I think, is important, and honoring the fact that we have that time together to, I feel heard and validated and seen.
Yeah.
A lot of what women need.
Right.
And that is important to me. And I feel, even if I know it's quote unquote meeting, but it actually makes a difference, I believe.
Yeah. It absolutely makes a difference. I mean, just that organized way of staying connected. And I mean, I think it may be different depending on how your family runs or how things run, but in the day-to-day chaos, and especially when you have kids and when you have responsibilities, you're running two businesses or doing crazy things on the side. It's like having that intentionality and knowing that this is a season. It's not going to be like this forever, but at least we're organizing those meetings in that way. I think it is a game changer, and it works out to our advantage, and it keeps us on the same page.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's also the fact that it's like taking the time and honoring our relationship, because if we don't, why are we together? Like, it doesn't make sense. I think that's where it is. Yeah. It's taking the time and remembering why we are together and what we are doing in this relationship.
Absolutely.
So. And also setting up date nights. That's been a game changer. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's actually a great idea. We need to set up probably a date night for tonight, since I will be around next weekend. But yeah, but definitely for next weekend, since it is our anniversary. Marie, happy anniversary, my love.
Aww.
And 19 years, and actually have been together for 25 years this next February.
Shut up.
Yeah. Look who has a great memory of the years.
I'm bad at that.
I know.
When you said 19 years, I'm like, oh, really? I'll believe you because
the reason I know it's 19 is because I'm like, oh shit, is it 20? Oh my God, if it's 20, I'm screwed. But no, it's good. It was 19. Whew, I still got another year before I have to do something.
Yeah, we
big.
may need to pick that up in the meeting.
Yeah, we need to
figure out what
we
we're
have to
going to
figure
do.
out that.
We should have a big party.
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
you're all invited. All of our listeners here to if you can fly out to Boulder, you will be invited to our massive 20th anniversary birthday. What the heck is that? Oh my gosh, our 20th anniversary party.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for being here today and joining me on this little. I think this went great. I appreciate you sharing a lot of these insights and talking about how our relationship has evolved. It continues to evolve and everything. So.
Oh, I'm very honored. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. You want to try it again sometime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
yeah.
course.
We'll keep on doing it. Well, if anyone out there who's listening, has anything they want to talk about or know about, those kinds of things, let us know. We'll talk about it on our next episode. We'll try and do this maybe on a monthly basis, but I appreciate you joining us today. I appreciate you joining us in my new studio that's 5 feet back from where I used to be. Join me next week when I move up at 5 feet again and interview my next guest who will be here. Please don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple and on YouTube. And rate it, and please also, we're at a point now where we're growing so well that people are enjoying. They're getting a lot out of the show. That means that there are people that are out there that haven't heard this show yet that might be able to get something from it, from the many guests that we've had, from the discussions we've had, from the tips and strategies that we've shared on this show to help people overcome fear and achieve greater flow. So if you know somebody like that, please share an episode with your friends. Let them know this exists and help us to become a top 1% podcast so that we can reach more people and make this message shine. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. Thank you to my lovely wife, Marie, and we will see you next time. Thanks. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.